Hello and welcome to another episode of The Captain's Table. My name is Paul Berserker01, Batman Shelley, your humble host and space bartender at the AstroPub, your space bar at the end of the universe. And this is The Captain's Table. It's a podcast about Star Citizen. It's been running for 8 years now. And we talk about Star Citizen news. We do theory crafting. We've been talking about Star Citizen for a long time, just basically any sort of Star Citizen content. And I try to bring as many Star Citizen content creators as I can find to bring on to talk about it, big and small. So without further ado, let's introduce the guests for today, starting with a face you've seen before if you've been watching this, because you've been on a couple of times, Astral. But
yeah, I have.
But it may have been some time. So, Astral Gemini, who are you? What do you do in Star Citizen, and where can they find you?
Yeah, so I'm Astral Gemini. You can find me on YouTube and on Twitch at Astral Gemini. I make various videos, mostly like guide videos for like starter ships and stuff like that, as well as just random compilations from various streams and stuff that I do in game.
Okay, awesome. And then we have another face who's been on here before. It's been a while. That many of you know, Mr. Space Cutlet. Cutlet, who are you? What do you do in Star Citizen? Where can they find you?
Hey everyone. Was I here before?
Yeah,
no?
You've been here before.
Wait, really? I have a memory of a goldfish. So that's
you've been
normal,
here. Yeah. It looks like a total of once, maybe twice.
Once, yeah. And it was probably very long ago. I guess like we were talking years.
2021?
21.
Yeah.
2021. Yeah, that's like literal years. That's I don't remember that far. Yeah. Anyway, hi everybody. My name is Space Cutlet or just Cutlet. I'm your resident degenerate streamer pirate. You can find me at Twitch TV Space Cutlet. Hey, what a surprise. And I usually do either piracy in game, which people get really mad at me, but that's life. And or I do a lot of science or just weird stuff. Something weird usually. And that's what I do. I have a crew. We're running for years together and we're having fun in the game. And basically then I started streaming all that, and that's who I am.
Yeah. Many people here has probably followed, if you haven't been following Cutlet's journeys, if you want to learn how to do piracy in Star Citizen, Cutlet has basically been the how-to guy to how to do piracy in all stages of Star Citizen piracies. So, and last but not least, we have Mr. BoTalksGaming. Bo,
hello.
Who are you? What do you do in Star Citizen? Where can they find you?
Well, I am BoTalks. My name's Bo, so that's the reason for the name, and I talk. And I'm also over on TikTok at BoTalksGaming over there. And in Star Citizen itself, I'm usually hanging out on Microtech. If I'm by myself, I'm either salvaging or mining, or I'm running with the boys from Clear Expanse and whatever shenanigans they get up to.
Awesome. All right. So today is an interesting one because it was actually proposed by a viewer. Somebody asked specifically to talk about the MMOification of Star Citizen and suggested, hey, Cutlet wants to talk about this topic. Would you allow him to come on the Captain's Table? And I was like, yeah, it's been a while since Cutlet's been on. I'm always cool with Cutlet talking about it. So I reached out, and all of these folks have extensive experiences with MMOs before Star Citizen. And I'll start off by saying I don't have a ton of experience with MMOs. I did play the original WoW. I played Lord of the Rings Online. I played Star Wars Galaxies. Let's see what else before the big update, and I didn't play much. I played an MMO that is used to be infamous called APB, which was basically
it's a good one.
Yeah, it was GTA Online before GTA Online existed. It was shut down within a week of it launching, but I played I was one of the closed alpha testers for it. It's actually one of the few. It was like one of the first 100 people who actually played that game. Let's see what other ones. Obviously the like PlanetSide 2, the DayZ, those sorts of games, which are MMOs in quotations, but you know, yeah, APB stands for All Point Bulletin. So I am not an extensive MMO gamer. I have concepts of what works and what doesn't work, but most of it is the high level knowledge. So these folks come from a variety of different backgrounds as well. I'm gonna start with you, Bo, on this one. What is your experience in MMOs for people to know?
Eve Online was basically it for the traditional MMO. I started way back in 2016. It's the entire reason I actually have high-speed internet. A buddy of mine showed it to me, and I'm like, I'm calling the cable company tomorrow to get that installed because I need to play this game. And I played that for about 6 years and did an awful lot in that game.
Awesome. Cutlet, what's your MMO experience?
It's quite an extensive list. It's really hard to go through like the entire list.
What's the high levels that you could talk about?
Like just overall, speaking about a little bit of my gaming background, when I said before this the show started, I'm a degenerate, that is completely true. Like my parents probably lost me at like around an age of 4 to gaming in general. And then my actual first real MMO was Ultima Online. That's by many considered to be the first MMO.
Yeah.
And it set a very high standard of sandbox gameplay because there were no real MMOs before that, right? And the huge thing that Ultima did was introduce this player interaction and the aspect of loss of the assets and all the cool stuff. And then from there it went different ways. I did that's not an MMO. I did a lot of Neverwinter Nights on the hardcore full load servers that people were creating the worlds in a non-MMO game, but it felt like an MMO. Then a little bit of World of Warcraft. It never felt to me like it was my game because I instantly switched to Eve at around 2004. Whenever the person who I was playing with Neverwinter Nights, he went to Eve and he took me with him. And then Eve was from 2004 to around 2010 with all the different games in between, because Eve is such a game where you could wait a lot and just spin your ship in a hangar and you have time to do other stuff. So it was Star Wars Galaxies, whatsoever. I don't remember even the order of that, but I mostly tried to play the online games that were meaningful, that would have your actions would have an impact on yourself and on other players. That's the games I was looking for, because if you take World of Warcraft, I played a bit vanilla, then I came back in Lich King, then Cataclysm. It never stick to me because all of this infinite useless just going and raiding and just upgrading your gear to get bigger numbers, just to get bigger gear, to get bigger numbers. It never felt like good for me. So yeah.
Okay.
Whole range. I think I've played through 3 dozens or different MMOs extensively, not just one day, and off. Yeah.
So you would say you're more of an MMO gamer than other games?
Yeah, I obviously did play, especially back in the day, a lot of other games, but then you get older, your brain just gets worse and worse, and you just stick to something. You lose reaction, you cannot play Counter-Strike anymore, So I would say I'm a big MMO gamer in general.
Awesome. And then Astral Gemini, what's your history with MMOs?
Yeah, I've got a pretty extensive history with MMOs. Compared to these guys, my experience with EVE Online is pretty brief, so I might be bringing a view of a slightly different style of MMO to this conversation. But I first got into MMOs with World of Warcraft. I think I started around the time that the Burning Crusade came out, and I played for quite a few years up until around the release of Warlords of Draenor is when I kind of stopped playing WoW. From there, I drifted to a few different MMOs and tried a few different ones like Guild Wars, Tree of Savior, stuff like that. Played quite a bit of Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic. That was a great one. And then landed in Final Fantasy 14, which is probably the MMO that I've put the most amount of time into, I would say. I've been playing that for the last few years, and but I've done a lot of like in WoW, I was a Mythic Raider. Final Fantasy 14, I'm a Savage Raider, so I do a lot more of the like hardcore content as well as like the collecting,
the Sweat Lord stuff.
So yeah, the Sweat Lord stuff.
Yeah.
As well as kind of some of the community events and stuff like that I've participated in as well.
Awesome. So needless to say, I got these folks together because I asked for people and they kind of talked about it. And I was like, okay, well, these folks seem to have the most breadth and different opinions and experiences with different MMOs. And one of the things that was clear with this last CitizenCon and for this last year in general is the devs have been talking consistently about turning Star Citizen into an MMO. And that was a consistent message from the devs since, I would say, February or March. And it really was the main headline of CitizenCon. If it's that's honestly, personally, I would say that is the message that the devs wanted to send with CitizenCon was Star Citizen is an MMO. And what does that mean? So let's start with just our initial experience, our initial reactions to what they've showed us. And then we'll go more in depth about the goods, the bads, the pitfalls they're going to fall into, things that they might do better on, that sort of thing. So I'll start with you, Astro Gemini, on this one. Overall, your initial reactions to that change or to that discussion.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting because I've always seen Star Citizen kind of as aspiring to become like an MMO. There were a few things in CitizenCon when I was sitting watching that struck me as interesting, especially when they started talking about like the org stuff that they're working on, as well as the like improved party chats and faction chats and like reputation stuff. It was interesting to see them talking about these features that they're adding in 12 13 years into the game's life cycle, that in just literally any MMO is just kind of like a basic feature that you just kind of take for granted, right? Like having in-game org or faction or guild, clan, free company, whatever the game decides to call it, stuff like that, where you have a specific chat for that. You have like levels that you can level up by doing quests and material turn-ins and other things like that. It's a pretty basic feature for pretty much any and every MMO that I've ever played. And then just like having functional party chats, like being able to see where your party is on the map and like travel to their location. That's all just like really, really basic stuff. So it was a little bit like I'm glad that they're actually working on adding that stuff, but this is kind of like, it's very basic stuff that any MMO should have, and seeing them hyping it up 12 years into the project was a little bit interesting. It's like I'm glad we're getting it, but
you're a little confused as to like
should have had.
Yeah,
it's like this is one of the like if you're trying to build an MMO, this is one of the basic building block elements of an MMO. What an MMO should have, right? It's like you would think that they would have, if they were trying to make Star Citizen an MMO, these are the kind of things that they would have focused on trying to get in,
earlier
in earlier in the development cycle, especially because it seems like they're trying to push the game towards more like cooperative play, adding the larger ships, capital ships, the engineering gameplay and stuff like that, as well as making bounties tankier and harder, and kind of encouraging you to go in with a crew instead of trying to solo these things. They, at least the game in the current state, really needs some work on how you actually connect and interact with other players in the game, and like find groups and stuff like that, like a party finder. It's like they mentioned adding a party finder, which is like that's awesome. It'll really improve the experience of the game, I think, because there's a lot of times I log onto the game and ping folks on Discord and no one's online, or people are at work or busy or whatever, and I'm kind of like, well, I don't know what exactly I can even accomplish today because I'm alone, and doing everything alone in this game is 10 times harder.
I would say that was probably one of the biggest things for a lot of folks who don't play a lot of MMOs, who probably were surprised by it, because I saw a lot of people say like, why is this is basic features that most MMOs have, and I think a lot of folks just don't realize that also, who don't play MMOs, who play Star Citizen, are like, oh wait, there's a looking for group chat that people actually use in MMOs, and it's so different kind of opinion, and I agree, a lot of this stuff is basic stuff that you should have had thought out a long time ago, I guess, but
exactly. I think that if you're not coming from a background of having played a lot of MMOs, then you just see these features and you're like, oh, I never really thought of that being a feature that I would like, but now that I know that it exists, I recognize that it's something that I could really like and would be very helpful for me in the game experience. But if you're coming from a background of having played a lot of MMOs, you just look at it and you're kind of like, this is really, really, really basic stuff that probably should have been in the game years ago.
Cutlet, initial reactions to like this plan for MMOification.
So all of that is obviously needed. I just want to completely agree with majority of the things that were just said. The fact is, if we are not building an MMO from Star Citizen, it's like, what are we even doing here after all the years? Right? It's impossible to even comprehend or understand the fact that we are building, I mean, not we, like, we're
CIG.
backing, we're just throwing money at them, but they are building a game for that many years, and it's not going to be an MMO, right? It's at this point, if that would be the case, we would have to have a released game already 5 years ago, right? And be done with it, right? If it would be like something like a DayZ, where it's not an MMO, server based, that we are building an MMO, definitely. And it's I agree with everything that was said before. I think the big issue here is that the huge portion of community, at least the core community of Star Citizen, maybe the newer generation of backers, will shift the balance a bit, but the original portion of backers, a lot of them are not gamers.
They're dad gamers. They're space dads,
No, I don't want to say the space dads. I think it's still disrespectful. Even with me, using that phrase sometimes when I rage, right? On streams, but
I don't mean it as disrespectful. It's like, you are a father, you have responsibilities outside of gaming.
I'm a father. I have a responsibility. I'm almost 40, bro. It's space dad because space dad in the community, it's kind of a negative thing to call a player when they have a very specific mindset. It doesn't matter how many kids they have, right? So the fact is that I think a lot of core community in SC are not gamers. A lot of them came for the name of Chris Roberts, and maybe the last game they played was like Freelancer, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So they didn't, back in the day at least, they didn't understand how like gaming genre and MMOs like evolved. And exactly what was just said before me, when you look at the current like chat experience in F12 experience in Star Citizen, and you understand that around 2001 or 2002, you had a better chat experience in Ultima Online, where there was just a text in the bottom of the screen, and you could do /P/G/ like whatever to, and you can scroll it, you know, easily without like freaking out. Yeah, all of the things that they've showed, as said, those are like actual basic features with the social stuff. But actually, social stuff that I've seen, while I do say yes, it is unimaginable how we still don't have it. That's one of the probably most awaited things from the CitizenCon that I've seen that I want to be in the game. Because as I said, I'm all about like actions, consequences, and player interaction. I want those ability to set up like friendlies, hostiles. I've been begging, I've been crying, I've been crawling on my knees like CG.
Yeah.
It has to be in it. You cannot like create a game where whenever you see a target, like, yeah, I have a, let's say Salty Mike, I have I'm friends with his like guild, whatever, corp, org, right? I cannot remember all like 200 or whatever people he has online. And I'm a pirate. I take people's stuff. Like, how many years I have to, like, to do what? Like, I tag them and he said, "Oh, Cutlet, I'm with Mike." And I'm like, "Oh shit, sorry, your ship is already blown up to shits," right? So those are the basics. The fact that we still don't have them is crazy. The fact that they finally started talking about them is really good. So yeah, I think let's move. Like, yeah, I'll pass it on to Botox, because like I can talk about it forever. But yeah, that's the general idea.
We'll go into more specifics here in a moment. So,
yes, we'll have time for that.
Yeah, Bo, general vibes coming out of CitizenCon about the MMOification.
I absolutely loved it. 100% loved it, because coming from Eve as my only experience in MMOs, it kind of ruined all other MMOs for me because it was a time sink. You got out of Eve what you put into it, and this was the kind of the closest thing I found to that as well. Like you get into Star Citizen and you find the fun, you find whatever you want to do, which is fine, but the framework they talked about being added to it to give some type of structure, to give some guidance and everything like that, just made unbelievable sense. And then just like what Cutler was talking about, the reputation thing, they've pushed reputation with various orgs in the game, but nothing for us. Like, if I know who Cutlet's character was in game, he's going to be marked as a pirate, so I don't go near him because I'm going to be mining all the time.
Yeah.
But we don't have anything like that. Do we even have DMs, like direct messages, like, hey, there's a pirate around here? Or
we do, but it's messy. We do, but it's messy.
You can DM and chat. This is the first. I've been playing this.
You can call someone.
Yes.
On the VoIP. Yeah. And then you open MobiGlass and you can click on the direct call and then type in it. I don't want to talk about it. It's so bad.
I've been playing this game for 10 years. That's the first time I heard that there's a DM you can do in game.
That's how we contact our. We used to contact our marks. Yeah. If they cannot like talk to you, you can at least call them and start typing before they close the call. You have to make it like so they see it. It's crazy. It's messy.
Wasn't there also a bug that showed like their location once you got on the call? So...
Yeah, that's an old one. Yeah. Oh,
I'm getting a call. I'm not opening that.
Yeah.
Treat it like a normal cell phone. But yeah, overall, I was super excited for that because it makes Star Citizen more of a standard game to get more people in, to get the game finished. And it's absolutely stuff we should have had forever ago.
Okay. Bo, I'll ask you this next one then. Let's start with the negatives. What are some of the stuff that with CIG talked about? You're just like they have no idea what they're doing, or this is going to end up horrible, or the negative sort of aspects where like the problems that CIG is going to run into because of what they're talking about with MMOs.
Shared spaces. Shared spaces and stealing everything that's not bolted down. Again, from EVE, the theft rings that happened in EVE from various organizations that made, gaming news outside the game was not at all perpetrated by me. I don't know what you're talking about. But as soon as they said that, I'm like, oh, this is going to be a nightmare if you don't know exactly what you're doing. So as soon as you make the slightest mistake, you lost everything.
Yeah.
Now, anything that, of course, we bought with money, we'll be able to get back, yada, yada. But serious dangers there.
Okay. Cutlet, same with you. Is there anything that you saw from them that were just like, oh, CIG is running into something
already smiling.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll breathe out. Give me a second.
Take your time.
I actually love the aspect of danger. I know like this EVE has this I don't know how to say it, like zero trust policy or whatever you call it.
Trust no one. Yeah,
trust no one unless you trust them actually. But I wanna talk about something else. The two things like that really made my blood boil on the CitizenCon, where I was literally screaming because I was there, right?
Yeah.
Is the new insurance policy and to an extent the blueprints policy. So with the insurance thing, obviously we understand that there are pledged ships, right? And they have obligations, they have promises they did. I totally feel like overall it's not going to be good for the game, but they have to keep the promises they did with the LTI and whatsoever. But the fact that they announced that the insurance will work now as of like anything purchased on a pledge store, it has a warranty and it's unlimited. Like it's lifetime, no matter what insurance is. And then you have the tiers of insurance, like 1, 2, 3. The fact this is where they go beyond what they've promised and they start to dig their own grave.
Okay.
So they said, okay, everything that has a warranty, you will get the items back. But then they continue, and that's fine. That's fine if we're talking about tier 1 insurance, right? You get the basic stuff back. But then they continued. If you have a tier 2/3 warranty, insurance, the warranty follows the rules, the tier of the insurance. So if you have everything upgraded, like your super duper ship, and it has a warranty, you will get everything back. And they've never promised that in reality. And this is done. So I'll be a little bit negative here.
Okay.
For me as a player who like seen how the different games operate and how they develop, for me as a player, I look at this only in a perspective, okay, so what they're telling now to the entire audience right before the IAE, that guys, from convenience of LTI, we're swapping now all the money you give to us to an insane advantage. Because as they said, to get a warranty on something you haven't purchased in a pledge store, it's going to be hard. It's going to be a grind fest, and you might be, maybe you will get like few ships with a warranty outside of the pledge stuff, but it's going to be a problem. And changing warranty from one ship to another is going to be like not an easy process. So they're telling their audience, so from a minor convenience, you were getting with paying money to us, now you're getting a huge advantage, because if you have a warranty ship, you just upgrade it and you will get everything back. And why this is a problem for me. This is not the matter of, because you can crank up the price of insurance as much as you want. Yes, so person, when they will lose such a ship, they will still lose money, right? They will be punished. But why this is a huge problem for me personally? This is a problem because whenever you give all the upgraded stuff back to the players, right? Mm-hmm. With the warranty, what about the crafters? Like, if we go back to Eve and the whole beauty of that like world and how players interact with each other, whenever I would, let's say AstroPub, let's say you are the crafter and you have a set of wonderful guns, right? No one crafts them better than you. I go to you, I pay you money once, I take your guns, I install it on my Hornet, then I fly and I die in that Hornet, and I never ever come back to you again.
Yeah, because you got a tier 3.
You have no job. That's it. You have no job. After the initial first cycle of gameplay, your crafting skills are not necessary, because I will get that with insurance, because I'm not stupid enough. I'll insure tier 2 or tier 3. I will get them back. And that is like, in my head, that breaks the they've shown economy. Us they've shown us this cool, unrealistically great and cool logic they are willing to implement with crafting, and then they show us, we're all excited, and then they do the announcement with insurance, and it literally crosses everything they showed. Mm-hmm. Instead of giving us this huge opportunity to like have this interaction between the players, they're saying, well, you'll craft it yourself and whatever, and instantly moves Star Citizen from being closer to Eve infinite economy, where S is just like, there is a cycle of life and death of assets. They're produced, they're lost, and they're produced again, and it's like trading and all that. It instantly moves us from there to like World of Warcraft, which doesn't even have a real economy, where you upgrade your crafting skills, you like craft stuff once, and then your profession is not needed. Only consumables are needed if that profession provides consumables, and then everything is not needed. And that's what really, really made me feel bad. And the second thing was with the blueprints. It's very close to the insurance problem, where they said a character will always retain the blueprints they invented. And I think that's like, again, creating a huge gameplay loop and then just crossing it over completely. Like, I personally don't think that advanced blueprints should be
retainable,
infinite.
Yeah.
Again, let's look back at Eve. They did that mistake once. Bo probably knows what is a tier 2 BPOs how they ran away from that problem. So yeah, you can have like basic blueprints infinite. That's fine.
Didn't that almost bankrupt that specifically? Almost bankrupt CCP?
No, bankrupt CCP just created a very huge like misbalance in the economy, where there was like the people who got the BPOs like originals, they were infinite. They were like, they were oversaturating the market. Like, the struggle to get advanced stuff should be infinite.
Okay.
Then it forces the game to be replayable over like generations, over decades, right? It's like, you have the basic stuff, sure, but everything that is high tech should be reinventable. You should lose your blueprints. They should degrade. They should have limited ROMs, whatever you do it, whatever the way you do it, right? So that is like two major things I was really disappointed with, and I hope on certain of them, at least, they will like dial back. They will reconsider. They maybe listen to us, listen to someone else. I don't know, because if they want to do an MMO that really survives the years and will not just slowly die out, they really have to think about it. Otherwise, if you do the great gameplay loops and they're not like playable after a year or half a year, what's the point?
Yeah,
that's two main things that were negative.
Okay, I was gonna say, because like the way you just broke it down to me as you were talking, I was like, holy shit, he's right.
Yeah.
Like 100% right.
That comes from, I don't want to sound like, like a prick that knows everything, but that comes from years and years and years of playing the games like this.
Yeah.
Like, that's why I said I love the games that have like interactions that are impactful, that are not just straightforward questing, you're done.
Yeah.
And I've seen these problems. I've seen the games that did that correct and they survived. And I've seen the games that did that wrong and they failed and no one remembers their names. I played both of them, right?
Yeah.
So yeah.
No, I agree. I'm that you bring it up, and I think there's some people who are disagree in chat. But the argument is if CIG wants to make a player-run economy with high-tier gear, then there needs to be you need to have gear fear. Like to use a Tarkov analogy or DayZ analogy, survival game analogy, you have to have gear fear.
You want to have a moment when you fly out in a ship and your hands are shaking.
Yeah.
Because you know how expensive it is and you're gonna lose it.
Yeah.
And that's one of the most beautiful moments in these games. And one more point, and I'll finish on this. I know there's like this overall idea. A lot of people would counter it, but you have to understand how long you have to wait for the ship if you lose it, right? For the insurance. Here's the thing. After a year, I will have not one ship like this. I will have 10 ships like this. Okay, I will come to you to get those guns 10 times. But then when I'm done, because I will not lose more than 10 in a row, let's say, before the first one comes back, the same problem will occur, right? It's that, whatever. Yeah,
I agree. You're right. I don't like what I'm gathering is that it's not necessarily that like, no, you can't keep all blueprints, or no, you can't get your stuff back. But like, there should be some limits to it, especially in my opinion, tier 5, like the tier 2, tier 3, and tier 5 stuff. That when you get above a certain tier, or just player crafted items, just straight up, you can't replace them because they're player crafted. So that's like, it's like if you're getting insurance and it's like, hey, my house burned down and there's this artisanal crafted vase which was made by a dead monk in India. That is literally irreplaceable. Can I get a new one? They'll be like, no, here's your money.
Exactly. And that's the point. You don't have to make it like too brutal.
Yeah.
Like there are ways and algorithms to estimate the cost of an item minus the premium. I'm fine for people getting money like back for certain upgrades, right? But I want that money to partially be sunk out into the insurance company, which is like removing money from the economy.
Yeah.
But partially they go back to the player. So they take that money and they reinvest into a player-driven market, and then you have something to do if you're a crafter.
And
right?
it stimulates the people who aren't just seal clubbing or bounty hunting or whatever. It helps the people like Bo who are out mining, because now people need Bo's materials to be able to craft,
because they need to craft for
so
someone who wants to pew pew. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So
in Cutlet, that actually brings up something I'd honestly forgotten about with that, because what I mostly did in Eve after my run of piracy in Eve, I went into the industrial side of things.
Yeah.
And creating and researching all of that was a very time-consuming process, but it was also very rewarding because then you got all kinds of money. I've seen somewhere people have been talking about this insurance thing and getting, I think it was just yesterday on the recorded live, they were talking about getting blueprints back for subscriber gear.
Yeah.
If they replace your stuff with a blueprint, would that be better? If like you had to have a reputation gate on crafting that super advanced player created item, would that be better in your mind?
It depends. It's really hard to theory craft like out of the blue, But the idea, of like, I've heard different ideas. Like, I've heard people saying, "Oh, just give us like blueprints." Like, I've had like, let's say Polaris or something. Just give me the blueprint of Polaris. I don't need the ship. Like, let my pledge be a blueprint. I've heard different like opinions. Obviously, that's not going to happen. But yeah, I think blueprints can play a role of this like substitution, partial substitution. How it's hard for me to say right now. For not to say like stupid, silly things people will hold me to afterwards, like tomorrow, like, oh, you said some bullshit, it doesn't work like this. You really need to like sit and break it down to understand like when it's possible, when it's not possible, what items will be substituted, what items will not substituted, like what you gain from reputation with an org. Okay, I grind for an org, whatever, for Anvil, and then I have their reputation points, and then I get this reputation points plus the money, and then I can get a blueprint. It's like it. You know how it works. It's an infinite like wormhole into all of this mechanics. So
there's definitely details.
There is a way for like toying with the blueprints and how people get stuff back.
I do think that you're bringing up a good point, as I said earlier, Cutlet, and both of those are points that need to be addressed by CIG. With certain things and certain tweaks, because if they do want players, because I hated WoW's crafting system because it felt pointless. It felt like you did just stuff on your own so you could make stuff, and then you wouldn't even be able to sell it on the marketplace. Really, you make it for yourself, and then you'd always go end up doing like a dungeon or a raid, and all of a sudden, oh, I've got better gear now. Why did I even craft that leather armor for myself to use? Like when I could just go here, it's like a step along the path rather than being the end goal of what you should be doing. Especially for skilled people who really want to get good at stuff. Astral, your negative takes from what they've talked about.
Yeah, I have quite a few thoughts.
Okay.
On kind of what Cutler was saying, I think that CIG has kind of a fine line that they need to work, that they need to walk along in order to make the insurance system not overly punishing for players, but also not completely trivialize the crafters, right?
Yeah.
And I think that it partially depends on how or how difficult it is to actually obtain that tier 3 warranty, because that's the one that replaces all of your components, right? Because I think insurance just gives you like a monetary value of the ship that's like reduced based on how old and decrepit it was, and then tier 1 gives you just the stock factory components, and then tier 2 gives you like decorations, and then tier 3 gives you all your upgraded components, or it might be the other way around. So I guess it kind of depends on how difficult that they make it to actually get that tier 3 that replaces all of your parts. One thing that I think would be interesting that they could do is if they made some kind of insurance system where if there is a component on your ship that can just be purchased from any market or something like that, then they'll just replace it. But if it's a player crafted component that can't be, then the system would put a contract on the contract board and say, we need this component crafted, and we'll pay you out via the insurance company. So that could be a way to plug that issue. In a lot of the more classic MMOs, they kind of solve the issue with crafters because they are constantly advancing the game, right? So basically, what you'll do as a crafter, and I know this because in Final Fantasy XIV, I'm an Omni crafter, so I do this quite frequently. But they'll come out with a new raid tier, and that new raid tier will need a specific quality of gear to even get into the raid tier. So the crafters will craft that gear for the raiders, sell it at a premium, and then the raiders will take that gear, go into the raid, and then they can get the better raid gear. And then the price of the gear will slowly dwindle over time, but then they drop another patch that has a new raid tier that makes a completely new set of gear. But with Star Citizen, they can't really do that. So yeah they're going to have to figure out some way of making, because you can't, because in a game like that, it's mostly PvE, so you can't, so you can continually power scale gear like that. But in Star Citizen, because there is PvP allowed pretty much anywhere, you can't really do that, because that would put you in a situation where a fresh player in their Aurora flies out of Hurston and gets shot by someone that
level 80 warrior.
Exactly. That's been playing the game for 7 years, and they have the newest, fanciest guns that are scaled for whatever the newest content is, and it just completely, like, it's like a size 3 gun that completely demolishes the starter ship shields or whatever. It's not something that Star Citizen can really do. So they're definitely going to have to be very careful with how they implement a lot of these things that they talked about. And I feel like they really need to keep an open line of communication with the player base when they're doing these things, kind of saying like, is this working? Does this work? Does it need changing? Is this making your job feel valuable? But one thing that I felt when I was watching CitizenCon this year, especially when they were talking about the 1.0 features and stuff like that, is I feel like at least as they have laid it out, and I could be misunderstanding where they're going with things, but I feel like Star Citizen, the MMO, is not made for the casual player. I feel like there's a lot of things, especially because just the way that Star Citizen is made, it can a lot of times take hours to get anything at all done, right? And that's why a lot of people buy ships on the eStore, because a huge amount of the player base of this game is people that are late 20s, 30s, 40s. They're working their 9 to 5. They want to come home, they want to play their space game, but they don't have the time or the energy to spend 6-8 hours a day grinding out stuff to upgrade to the next ship or stuff. So they either have the option of taking weeks, months, years to get that next ship that they want, or they just buy it on the pledge store, which is why they get so many pledges, right? They offer that option so that people can say, oh, I can just get this.
I want to play
money, and it comes. Yeah, I just want to be able to play the game, jump on, play for an hour or two, right? But you get into this this situation, especially where everything is PvP. Like Bo said, in EVE Online, people will come and take everything that's nailed down, right? And they need to figure out some way to give the hardcore players, the hardcore experience that they want, the people that want to, that have the time or the dedication to really sit down, grind things out, do piracy, do PvP, raid stations, stuff like that. But then also have an option for casual players to be able to play the game and at least have some semblance of security in the fact that they can play for only an hour or two a day and not come back and everything they had is completely gone, and they
totally agree with that.
Right?
Like, if I can have a word on that,
sure,
I 100% agree. And that's what I guess the different star systems will do.
Yeah,
if
that,
we,
that's
ahead.
kind of what I was thinking. Is you have a system like Pyro, which is a lawless system, and then you have a system like
Lawless.
yeah, it was supposedly lawless. Well, but it's not governed, right? But then you have a system like Castra that is like has a heavy like military presence.
Yeah.
So I feel like a very easy way to solve this is like if you make your base in Castra, you have the opportunity to like establish it in an armistice zone, but when you're like gathering resources or whatever from your base on ground or from your space station or whatever, you're not going to get as much. But if you want to build your base in Pyro, you can get more resources faster.
Better.
But you're going to have to keep an eye out because there's no armistice, there's no
There's a friendly A2 flying around, you know?
Yeah, you're gonna have to. So because I have played EVE Online a little bit, but not near the experience of like Bo or Cutlet. But I know that a lot of these, a lot of the organizations in like EVE and Elite Dangerous and stuff like that, they play it almost as like a second job. Right, they've got their Excel spreadsheets, and the organization has like timesheets that you need to clock in and out of, and
it
you're, like,
changed a lot. It
yeah.
changed a lot recently. Actually,
I haven't. It's been a few years since the last time I played
Yeah.
it, so or kept up on the game. But I feel like Star Citizen needs to avoid a situation like that where people feel obligated
Or
to
second job.
they like have to log in for X amount of time a day. They have to have someone watching their stuff at all times. Otherwise it's gonna go missing, right? Because Star Citizen has this unique audience of like we were talking about, these players that are older. They're working people. They're the space dads, right? Which is not necessarily a bad thing. It's just you're at this point in your life where you have your expendable income that you want to spend on your space game, but you also have other obligations that you need to take care of in your life, and you don't have that much time to spend on the game. So they need to have some systems in place to be able to cater to that type of player, whilst also allowing places for those more dedicated hardcore players who have more time on their hands, or more determination, or whatever it is, to play the way that they want to and enjoy that. Which like if you're talking about if you're talking about a classic MMO, you have people who they're just going to do the story. They'll maybe do some dungeons, but then you also have the people that are going to be the savage raiders, the hardcore raiders doing, ultimate and mythics and stuff like that. And they do that. They're able to do that very easily because it's whole separate thing. It's all like instanced and stuff like that. But that's not something that they could really do for Star Citizen. I mean, I bet they could do some sort of like instanced content.
They've talked about
it already.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they can't. I don't think that with the way they're laying out the game, they can make like a specifically instanced zone just for like
without breaking immersion. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like this is the PvP area and this is the not PvP area.
They can like we have to assume that the PvP will be everywhere, but the CG can do a good enough job. I would say they could do a better than CCP job did with EVE, because CCP specifically wanted to do what they did. But again, if we think about the audience Star Citizen has, and where we like we want to take the game where it's even a bigger project than Eve, we have to, as you said, accommodate for different like variety of play styles. And it's up to CAG, I think, to do this security zones, because like for those who didn't play Eve, like Eve, let's say, has a such a thing as a Concord. It's a police force that at a certain security level and above, whenever you can do PvP aggression anywhere, but at a certain security level, if you do that, they will just warp in and eliminate you in a matter of seconds.
Concord is for revenge, not for protection. Yeah.
Yes. So the problem is in Eve, there are tactics, which is suicide ganking, where players will take a lot of small ships that are basically worthless, but the DPS of those ships will be enough to kill someone who is not suspecting an attack, and it would ruin their day because they could lose billions. Well, if CAG does a better job on that, I think we can separate this game styles where there will be safety and casual gameplay, and then the places where there will be full 24/7 dedication, where you have to like run it like your second job, right? And then still make it so both of those worlds connect somewhere in the middle, because people who are in the safe zones, they don't earn that much resources, they don't earn this and that people in a deep space like do, but stuff that they do is still required by the entire like population, even if it's a low tier resources. Like I would prefer just going to a safe space and buying like a hull E of iron, which was mined in a safe space. It's a simple material, right? But it was still mined in a safe space, but I still need it for crafting. And I don't want to bother mining it in Pyro or somewhere like in Nyx. It's easier for me to go and interact with those players who I don't even fight with, and take their iron and make an escort and bring that hull E or hull C, whatever, of iron back to my base in Pyro or Nyx. And then because I have an access to better resources, I'll just do that stuff there and buy their like low tier, and it all connect, right? It just you have to nail down that protection thing, right? One thing I wanted to bring up also, there was a letter from the chairman from God know what year, and there was one interesting thing about the insurance. Back then, at least, I don't know if they will hold to it. They already were talking about multiple levels of insurance, right? They never knew it would be 1 to 3, as they said at this CitizenCon, but they were already like considering that. So back in that letter, I don't have a link right now, but I hope you can trust me.
I'm sure Tree's in chat, so he'll probably be able to find this really easily if we mention it.
We recently opened it up and seen it. It was said that the insurance will be paid off only by the security level of the system. So if you have a tier 3 insurance and you go and blow up your ship in Pyro, sorry, buddy, you'll get only tier 1. And everything else is lost. So that's another thing we have to remember. And they might roll back to that idea. And that would put us in this scenario where, casuals are protected in the safe zones. But if you go in Pyro, bro, all your upgrades, your own risk. Do whatever, you lose them. They might also think about that too.
Yeah. I was actually going to mention that, because I recall reading that as well, where like if you go in a zone that is too dangerous, then your insurance is only going to pay out the basic, because they're just like, you know you can buy car insurance, but if you are if you're
going on a racetrack,
if you're going on a racetrack,
if you take your car to Mogadishu, you're not gonna pay off your car insurance if you take your Hummer to Mogadishu and decide to participate in the local warlords conflicts. They're not exactly going to cover you for that.
Exactly. So that might also be some way that they kind of fill that gap that we were talking about with the crafters, where the only reason that you need these special master crafted guns or shields is to go fight whatever it is in this danger zone. But if you die there, then if you die there, then you're gonna lose your guns.
Yep. Risk versus reward.
I will say my concern, because we've actually well overshot our time that we're originally supposed to do. So, and I do want to go on more positive sides, because I know a lot of people are thinking we're kind of hitting hard. Because I think, generally speaking, almost all of us in the very initial said we're very positive about what CIG is doing and this movement. We're just pointing out some of the edge cases and flaws that CIG is going to need to either address or shave down in the future, and in some way, shape, or form. Because these are things that happen in all MMOs. Like the idea of like getting your gear back is depends on where you are and depends on how you work, because, you know, some people definitely don't want to lose their raid gear on a raid, but garbage gear is garbage gear. And people have different feelings about having to like permanently lose items, things like bind on pickup ideas, bind on use. My personal fear is I'm kind of with Cutlet on this one, in the sense that I hate MMO stories. Most MMO stories are awful because they involve you being the chosen one, defeating the bad guy, and it has nothing to do with like the universe around you. The universe changes because you participated in it, but it participates in it because you're the awakened one or the ashen or the whatever the fuck. And that sort of doesn't really mesh well. It's great with a single player game where you have control over the narrative and stuff like that, but it's always difficult to balance with the MMO.
Blame World of Warcraft on that.
Yeah, to a degree, it's World of Warcraft has that problem because they kind of adapted a RTS approach to MMO, where it's like, instead of you being the commander, you're now the soldier, and the commanders are telling you what to do, and that kind of moved out. They took Warcraft and turned it into an MMO, and in some cases it works. Like Final Fantasy XIV, they took Final Fantasy and turned it into an MMO. So the actual story is not the story of you, but the story of the party you're with the whole time, and their story, and you're just controlling that party. And that's similar to what like ESO does, where it's like it's the story of your companions that you're with. You just happen to be the special person. So one of the things that I would prefer is something more along the lines of Star Wars Galaxies, where the concept is more sandboxy. There is a story, there is sort of things that go on, but instead of you being the grand hero, it's more of you are a cog in the wheel of the machine that is crushing everybody. And your choices are not, do I save the universe? It's, which way do I pull the wheel? Do I pull it this way or this way? And everyone is pulling the wheel at the same time, and whoever pulls the most gets to do that. The only MMO that I've experienced that does that well is Elite. And when I say well, I put that in quotation marks, because they didn't do it well. They did it good, but it never felt real, which is why I think a lot of people in Elite are super excited about Power Play 2.0, because Power Play 2.0 sounds like they took the lessons of Power Play that didn't work out so well and improved upon it. And that's really the sort of the meat of my concerns. Is I want the story to be an introduction to the universe, but not to be go defeat the BBEG. Save the universe. It needs to be a guided tour through these different systems. Yeah. You need to feel like you're without making you the main character of the universe. Yeah. It needs to feel like you're living through history. As we all know, that experience, it's not fun, but that's the point. Especially in a video game, you can live vicariously through these awful events that are taking place around you, but you actually have some say in it, some control in it, rather than being pulled by the movement of history. And that's kind of I think that's the direction that CIG was always supposed to take, or at least they kind of talked about it. And that's my concern, is that they seem to not be moving that direction. And I've heard that Eve has a main story. I've also heard that Eve's main story is hot shit. It's just absolute dog shit.
It has epic arcs. So that is like a very long chain of quests. It's just the way Eve is done. In general, it's really hard to make a main story there that would be like engaging, because those are just like the quests, like go kill that guy, go bring that. And because like the way the Eve looks, it's really hard to like, make a like a storytelling that is close to other MMOs like World of Warcraft or whatever. But that's like the problem of Eve. But I think the good side, if we look at it, the fact they have that, they have the long like chains of quests, they have the side whatever stuff you can do, and then they cover a lot of different audiences, from casual to nullsec to then more dangerous low sec, because yes, low sec is more dangerous than nullsec. It's counterintuitive, but it is what it is. It's like, so minimal commitment from a player. That's what I like, and that's what I want Star Citizen to be. Minimal commitment from a player is high sec. Next commitment is null sec, and it's next commitment because there are huge alliances that cover your as. You have to do more commitment, but you're covered by alliances.
Yeah.
Then there is all the piracy and like super high expensive PvP where people have a lot of money that happens in low sec because of a very specific rule set there. And then there is no life in wormholes.
Yeah.
Like that is something I didn't do because I didn't want to commit to it. It's a no life gaming. You have it's a very tight groups of people who literally don't sleep. They take like turns. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And all of that is in one game. The only thing is, I think in Eve, like high sec isn't as secure for those casuals, for those like people who run storylines and all of that, and quest lines, as you said, like that will guide you and tell you. If Star Citizen could like take general this approach, but make like secure space even more secure for casual players, and then create the storylines you were talking about, and like that will guide you through the universe, that would be really cool. Yeah, that's what I want to see.
Okay, let's talk about the positive aspects of Star Citizen, of the MMOification. Like, what does CIG seem to be in the right direction for? And then we'll wrap it up, moving to the question and answers. So, Astral, what are some of the positive things you've been seeing from CIG's like movement in this direction?
Yeah, so I mean, like I was saying earlier, with those features like the chat features and the org features and stuff like that, that really should have been in the game a long time ago. It as much as I say that, it is really nice to see that they are working on getting them added to the game, because I think they will be a massive improvement to the game, a massive boon to the players by just making the general player experience a lot nicer. The other general vibe that I got from CitizenCon this year, it was a very different vibe from previous CitizenCons, which were more about, we're doing this and we're adding this and we're adding this and we're adding this and we're adding this. And this CitizenCon felt a lot more like, okay, we're not going to add anything more. We've realized what our limitations are, and we've put some groundwork in place of exactly what we want to have to get the game done and to a polished, playable release state. And we're going to stop with the feature bloat, and we're going to work towards actually getting this game out the fucking door. And that was kind of the vibe that I got through this whole CitizenCon, which I really liked, because a lot of times when they talk about stuff, you know, it feels like, you know, they just say, oh, this is going to happen.
Yeah.
Eventually. And it's really frustrating because they get, you know, you're just like, okay, we're just waiting on this kind of thing to come out at some point in the eventual future. And they just keep adding more and more and more stuff on it. But it felt like they were, you know, scaling back from 100 star systems to 5, but adding more, you know, density of POIs in those 5 systems to make them feel a lot more lived in and a lot more realistic. I really liked, and then just kind of laying out the groundwork for the reputation systems and the player interaction systems and stuff like that. I really quite liked that as well, and I also liked I liked the mention of the story. I think that, you know, again, they need to be a little bit careful on how they do it to not make you like the chosen one, the hero of the universe. But I think they could manage to make a cool story, you know, where you're just assisting the UEE as a mercenary and maybe infiltrating some sort of corruption ring or helping them to, you know, get intel out of the Xenothreat group so that they can send in the big guns to actually take care of them or something like that. And then the location stories. I actually was probably the most excited about, because I think it's an opportunity for, I mean, you know, Paul, because you're the lore guy. Star Citizen has a shit ton of lore.
There have been 4, maybe 5 writers that have worked at CIG for 12 years and done nothing but write. So they've got a lot of stuff that they can talk about. They have so much lore and so much world building built into this universe. And I think that those location stories are a really nice way for them to organically introduce a lot of that lore into the game in a way that isn't just, you know, finding a data pad and reading a Galactopedia article on it, right? Like you could, you know, find an NPC that's like, oh, I have these aliens that keep, you know, attacking me, and this is why they do it and part of their ecology, and I need you to go and kill 5 of them. Something like that. Just you know, really simple things. Really simple things, but just these things that or like there's this group that they're called the headhunters, and they're doing this because of this, and I need you to help me get this back from them. You know, just these small stories that could, you know, little side quests that take an hour or 2 and just kind of drip feed you these little vignettes of lore within the universe very organically. And if you're not into that, you can completely ignore them. You know, just make him give a decent reward that is like rewarding to those who go out of their way to do those, but not overtuned to the point that you actually have to do them in order to feel like you can make any progress in the game. Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
That's something that really excited me, and I think it's a really good way for them to inject a lot of this lore and world building and writing that they've done over the past 12 years into the universe in a very organic way.
You have a good perspective too, because playing Final Fantasy XIV, one of the things that I've heard is that the character writing in Final Fantasy XIV is fantastic. Like people get really super immersed into like the stories of the people you're with. So it's not really necessarily the story of you saving the universe as much as it's like your companion has to like get over the trauma of losing their father when they were a child, and now you have to help them like confront the past. It feels almost like Mass Effect-y, but it's constantly evolving, because it's not just a static, this is the story and it ends. It's just continues to go out as you work with them and kind of tell the story around them and that kind of stuff. So
that's a thing that happens a lot in Final Fantasy 14, where you go on this side quest and it's a very basic thing that they want you to do, but through the dialogue, through talking to the character, they give you pieces of the lore and like what it's like to live in this area or this country or this city or whatever, and the flora and the fauna and stuff like that. And some people are very interested in that, some people are not, but I think because they have invested so much time and resources into and they have probably thousands and thousands of pages written of lore that I don't have the time or the energy really to go and read through all of these, but it would be a great way to include a lot of that in very easily digestible snippets within the game itself, and get people more invested in the lore of this world that they built.
Cutlet, positives that you've pulled out from their kind of MMOification, that the plans so far.
Yeah, so in general, I want to say the event overall was super positive. Like, if someone was there, they know how good it is. Probably like the only bad part was that you either was standing for the goodies or you were watching the event. That was the only problem in the event. And I was really pissed I couldn't get the jacket. Like, so in general, like, the event was super cool. And aside from what I said as negatives, everything else was extremely positive. The fact that yes, we don't know when 1.0 is coming. Maybe it's 5 years. I don't know. The fact that they've set this like framework, of what we are going to have, and when we will say finally no more wipes, and we will actually start like experiencing the game as it should be. Not Tarkov wipes, not Rust wipes, no wipes, right? That is like extremely important. We understand the core features that are going to be present there, including like space stations and whatsoever. That is super important. Like social stuff. I hope social stuff that they showed is coming sooner than later, because for me, it is such an important thing. It's like one of the biggest thing I'm waiting for is at least the basics they showed in social stuff, especially with standings, putting standings towards different people. Like everything, even the armor stuff, it's pretty cool. It's good they're keeping their word that you're not going to level your character. It's just the gear that will like impact what you do. Like, yeah, I don't know. Like everything else besides those two things that I've pointed out, the blueprints and the insurance, everything else is extremely positive. They've showed, yes, we're going the MMO. They showed where we're going, how we're going. They never said how long it will take, obviously. But yeah, we are finally seeing what game we are waiting for. And that was always such a huge question. Like, until the CitizenCon, we were expecting things. We were hoping for things, but we never knew where exactly we were going. Yeah, I just hope they will, think about the stuff I'm negative about, and then, we are actually getting, like, I personally say, besides those things, I feel like, yes, I'm getting the game I want to play for years and years after it's released. So overall, like, I'm extremely positive.
Oh, what are the positives that you pulled out of that, out of this MMOification plan that they've been giving forward?
So the positives I pulled out of that is mostly we're going to start getting more and more people into the game, because like I love playing, just going around doing whatever. But a lot of my friends that I've drug into the game, sometimes kicking and screaming, have...
What do you mean sometimes? This is Star Citizen we're talking about.
I mean, really, the other two were just kind of like, sure, whatever. And the other one was...
Why did you blackmail me? How did you... we were supposed to go to Pizza Hut, not Star Citizen. What is this? You're stuck now.
You smell straight. So core from you. It's going to bring in more standard gamers, more of the MMO type gamers, where you don't just have to make something to do, you can go along and follow along with the base storyline, and then you get distracted by side quests. The short form stories from various locations. You find a particular spot that you think is very good to set up shop in. All of that's wonderfully positive for the future of the game itself.
Awesome.
I think with the story, they have an opportunity to kind of just run you through all of, because they have so many different game loops.
Yeah.
In Star Citizen, I think the story has a great opportunity to run you through all of these different game loops, just like as like a very brief, try at the loop. Maybe just give you a loner prospector and say, hey, we need you to go and get some iron for this project and stuff like that. But just give you a little tidbit of an experience so that while going through the story, you can kind of find which game loops resonate with you and which don't.
Yeah, I will say what I've taken away from this is they're bringing stuff in which I like about survival games that I've always wished were emulated in MMOs to some degree. Crafting is huge for me. I am not a crafter. I always engage with the idea of crafting, but I never follow through with it because it always feels like I'm crafting for the sake of crafting gear that I need to use, and I have to do it. It's a constant, like, it's a you have to do it because you have to do it, not because you want to do it. And for this, it feels like CIG is building a professions system without you having to like take a class or take a profession and that kind of thing. Like if you focus on brewing, you can make really, really good,
5-star beer.
Exactly. Tier 5 whiskey.
Copium pens.
Yeah. And then you take that and then you sell it to the NPCs for money, or to players if they want to use it for specific buffs, like, AstroPub's genuine moonshine gives you, night vision when you drink it for a certain amount of time. But it also will slowly kill you over the course of 5 seconds if you don't counter it or whatever. These things that allow for players to build random or specifically well-crafted items that allows for players to hard focus on something if they like doing that. People who want to be ranchers, farmers, build ships, build weapons, that allows them to make something that's unique to themselves is so big in the sense of it allows for an entire aspect of the game, which I feel has been abandoned for a long time, which is the emergent gameplay aspect of Star Citizen. Because while I really want there to be a good, healthy economy with NPCs and, for that to not be player messable as much, there also needs to be an economy where players have to rely on players. And that is key because it's an MMO. And in my opinion, most engaging thing about online play is when players are forced to come together. Cutlet mentioned about like the whole, like you have to be shaking every time you leave. DayZ has ruined all games for me because when I got my first kill in DayZ, I still remember it. I don't remember every game experience I ever had, but I remember because it was Cherno. There was a sniper in Cherno. My friend was being pinned down. They told me exactly where they were, and I just happened to be in the area when I was looting areas, so I was able to sneak up with a shotgun. I was literally shaking as I was approaching them because they didn't see me. And as I got close enough, I was able to run up and just start firing. I probably missed half the shots I was firing, but he didn't know I was there. So by the time I finished unloading everything I had, he was dead. And I was literally shaking at that point. Yeah. I've been playing FPSs since GoldenEye. Like I had since like Unreal. Like I've played FPS before. I've never had that experience because I knew that if I messed up, I would lose hours of progress. So having that sort of experience of like, I can't mess up. I spent so much time finding this dude who I know who can make this very specific weapon with this very specific I can't lose. I can't lose. And does it suck when you lose? Yes. but you want to have that experience as well of this being like, I have this god tier equipment that I've gotten combined with my practice and training. I can do really, really good. And I think that's where CIG is moving. And I'm very, very looking forward to that sort of
I think players
fusion.
who never experienced this are afraid of this experience.
Mhm.
And like, I think it's what CIG has to do is curate them slowly into that experience.
Yeah.
It's like, you shouldn't be that trader who goes to SCD1 at Daimler and then spends his last money to get his ship full of gold, and then they meet me.
Yeah.
Right. And then they start cursing me that I've ruined their entire progress. Yeah, bro, because you don't go and like spend all your money to buy the gold and then lose it, right?
Yeah.
So CIG has to do a good job into curating players into that experience and giving this like threshold to every player how far they want to take it. This handshaking experience. And those who like it, the adrenaline, they should have an opportunity to have it, and that should give them like those rewards if they're successful, right? Or if they're unsuccessful, at least this handshaking experience that they will remember, right? Because that's a very specific thing not many games give you. And when a person gets hooked on it, they get hooked. They stop like comprehending like how other people play World of Warcraft, and they just run from the graveyard 30 times in a row without like losing anything, right?
Yeah.
So that's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah.
They did very good example with a Daisy. Yeah.
Yeah. And I know that's not everyone's kind of cup of tea, and if some people just want to log in and hang around. And I think what CIG is doing is building that sort of, they have that in mind where they want to build this nice little sandbox which people can play around in and engage in the story and build their little home on, microtech and farm their turnips and sell them at the market and make enough money to keep themselves their paycheck in. And their friend tells them to go fight Xenothreat with them, and they get in a big Polaris as a gunner and go off and do this thing and then come back and have these little adventures here and there, but kind of mostly almost cozy game their way through Star Citizen. And then there's other people who want to like smear blood on their face and then go face tank a Vandal kingship while also having to fight off, Cutlet and 17 people and the most meta ship that's ever been built.
69.
Yeah.
I only run with a crew of 69.
6 to 9.
6 to 9.
Yeah, 6 to 9. Yes, I get it. Yeah. But yeah, like those sorts of things. And there's a balance there. And I think CIG is hitting that balance right now when they're planning. It's the key is planning versus execution. CIG can talk all they want, but we need to start seeing this coming into the game. I think that's the real
Don't
big
talk
thing.
the talk. Do the things. The execution. You can plan as much as you want, and then you'll get the execution that we usually get in the game. Again, I don't want to get too negative, but we all know that feeling, right? When the idea is good, but the execution is they're gonna nail it.
I think that's what Star Citizen is right now. Is we have this thing that is unlike any other game on the market right now.
Mm-hmm.
With all of the good and all of the bad that entails, because it has features and experiences that you cannot have in any other game, but it's also lacking so many simple features and polish that most games is just like a basic thing.
Yeah, before they even become like a game, they already have that, and we're still waiting for them for years. Yeah, that's a weird mix, 100%. Where you have this like, oh my god, like no one even thought of doing this, and we have it, and we take it as granted. But then we have chat that you cannot even use, right? Or other stuff, right? It's crazy. Or markers of team members that you can never see, and like it's crazy. It's a weird mix.
Or it's a game that you know that you can have these incredible emergent experiences, but sometimes you spend 3 hours trying to get into the same server as your friend, And
you
then
were just
can't-
trying
and then
3
you
hours
can't
to
see
do
your party
something.
markers,
Yeah.
and then you get off the
Yeah.
planet, and then at 30 Ks, and then you start back at square one.
Yeah.
And it's so incredibly frustrating. But if they can implement these things and stop trying to add new stuff and just add the things that will make the game an actual game and polish and refine and add stability,
Performance,
stability and performance, it will be the most unique and coolest MMO ever, because you'll have an MMO where you can also have these really cool emergent experiences, because it's also this incredibly interesting, detailed, and unique sandbox world.
Yeah, like we can add more stuff later, right? It's 1.0. It's not the end of the game. It's just the release, literally. The MMOs live for decades. Good MMOs live for decades. They can keep adding new stuff for God know how long.
As long as Chris Roberts is alive and people are paying for it, they can keep doing it.
Yeah.
So they got to keep.
About the unique experiences, a very, very small story. Can I have it?
Go for it. And then we'll move on to the question and answer after that. Go for
30
it.
seconds. Today we were toying with Polaris, and there was another Polaris that was running away at SCD-1. So we nuked it, and we boarded it. And the guy played along, super like huge respect. He never like cried about it. He never like backspaced. The dude played along. We took him to our Polaris. We knocked him out. I don't know if you guys toured Polaris already. Have you seen all of it? Like,
Yeah.
We brought him to the brig. If you've seen the brig,
Yeah.
We locked him up in the brig, and we used that little window to feed him with the cruise luxes. Then he was injured. We dragged him. We incapacitated him. I dragged him to the medical. We kind of healed him up, put him back to the brig, and he stuck with us for hours. It was hilarious. Like, what other game will give you this? What other MMO will give you this, right? This is like the crazy part in this game. Like, it's just the stuff around it have to be more solid. It shouldn't be running 15 FPS, you know?
Yeah.
And it's just, some experiences are just incredible.
Yeah, I agree.
Can I ask a question about that?
Go for it, Bo.
The brig, was he able to leave the brig? Was he able to open the door from the other side?
The brig works
full
properly.
It
works properly. Okay. You put the guy in, you close the door behind him. There is no button in the inside, and you have a lock on the outside, and there is no way. Like, we even tried glitching through. No matter what we did, put the boxes here, put the boxes there, do the sleep animation, do the dance to animation. You just, no way we could exit it. It was like pretty.
I know what to do with my friend who likes to complain about the game.
Yep. It was pretty solid.
There is also functioning cameras in the Polaris, so you can actually see the interior of them. So it's nice.
Yeah, it's really cool. The cargo elevators also lack collision half the time.
Yeah, unfortunately.
And the lighting, specifically the emergency lighting on the stairs in the that go up from the docking collars, are blinding. They are so blinding. It will give people epileptic seizures, I swear. It's such a cool ship, but there's just things that are like,
it's the first day. I think we'll have like, until it goes like live, we'll have a lot of durations of lighting or everything.
Plenty of issue council.
There's gonna be shit on that.
Get that all fixed up. But
sorry, I just got distracted. I want to tell the story.
That's a good way of putting it. That's a good way of ending this, of being like even now, even today, Star Citizen has these things. If they just they need to cultivate what they have and execute on their plan and focus on improving the experience for everybody. So yeah. All right, with that, we're going to move to the question and answer sessions. Thank you to Astral and Cutlet and Bo for your your time and your passion discussing your own experiences, as well as Star Citizen's MMOification. I'm getting better at saying that. If you are enjoying this and you're watching this after the fact, make sure you give all of their content a follow. Astral Gemini on YouTube and Twitch, at Space Cutlet on Twitch and YouTube, and then BoTalks mostly on TikTok, right? BoTalksGaming. And if you enjoyed this, please hit that follow button, follow button if you're on Twitch. Subscribe on Twitch. Hit the like button if you did enjoy this. You should subscribe on Twitch. Subscribe on YouTube. I am professional. Subscribe on YouTube. Hit the like button and hit the bell icon to be notified when these release. I'd like to hear your thoughts on MMOification of Star Citizen. Star Citizen becoming an MMO. Is this a good thing to a bad thing? I've heard lots of people who aren't so keen on things like the crafting system. So I'd like to hear those thoughts in the comments down below. And if you're wanting to hear the question and answer session, it'll be right above Astral Gemini's head. If you're listening to this on the podcast format, we do this on anywhere good podcasts are played. We do it through Spotify, but it goes to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, all of those places. So if you want to listen to this in an audio form, it is also there under the same name, The Captain's Table. With that all being said, thank you for watching. And like I say every time, hope to see you someday in the black.